5AA Breakfast Show. Everything you need to start your day.
The Nullarbor Roadhouse.
It's been bucketing down all night. Ben's at the Roadhouse.
Carport's underwater. It's been beautiful.
You're expecting you might get a bit more?
Yeah, it's looking quite dark out there. People were saying, have you had much rain? I'll just say, no, we've just got a king tide.
A bright start to the day. The 5AA Breakfast Show. Weekday mornings from 6 on 1395. Adelaide's 5AA Interactive Radio. Text 1999 1395. Sean Perry.
17 minutes past the hour of 5 on the AM here on a Thursday. And for most people, that's payday. Yay, team. Everyone loves a bit of pay, don't they? A little bit of cash. It's always good. Helps get you through. Pay those bills. Do those stuff. Do those stuff. My English is good at this hour, isn't it? Let's go straight across and talk to the amazing Selwyn Manning, all the way in there in New Zealand. How are you, Selwyn?
G'day, Sean. Pretty good over this side of the ditch, thanks.
Cool.
Yeah. How are things over there?
Yeah, well, we're getting a bit of rain because of the cyclone.
Okay. Oh, it's washing over from the western side.
Yes. Do you reckon you guys will get any of that?
Might get a little bit. We seem to be a few days down the track, and we can do with a bit of rain. No doubt the Tasman will cool it down a little bit, but yeah.
Well, we're here to help.
Rain. You can help.
No,
yes,
well, we're
absolutely.
here to help. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we've been drought right through. Usually, when get a call from you guys on a Thursday morning, a lot of the listeners will probably think, oh, God, it must be a miserable place across there. I'm always saying it's cloudy or raining. So most of the year it's been like that, but we've had one lot of rain, I think, since New Year.
Wow.
One or 2 days worth. And that's not enough to keep the farmers happy, and certainly the water reserves are starting to get low around the reservoirs. So it's a bit grim in that way. Starting to realise what it's like to be an Australian, maybe.
So what have you got for us this morning?
Yeah, well, it's a real tragedy, actually, and something that you guys certainly have had your fair share of. Yesterday there was a man, he was the victim of a great white shark attack at Muriwai Ocean Beach, which is just northwest of Auckland. It's only about a 30-minute drive from Auckland City Central. And he was out there swimming, real fit guy. His name was Adam Strange, and he was 46 years old. He was a film director and quite well known in the kind of alternative film area. And he was out there swimming in the ocean, pretty much alone. Some people were nearby on the beach and some surfers down the beach a bit. And he seemed to have swum into a group of great white sharks. And, it was all over for him, and very quickly by all accounts. Now, calls went to the police immediately from some people that were on the rocks nearby, and they managed to get there quite quickly in a helicopter above. But, of course, you know what it's like. Your listeners would know exactly what it's like when great whites strike people, and there was no chance by any account.
Well, and it's their environment. This is where they thrive quite well. I mean, we are not particularly quick creatures in the water either. No,
we're not. And I suppose we're just lucky that we don't have, comparatively, compared to how many people are out there in the ocean, we don't have that many attacks. Certainly here in New Zealand, the last fatal attack was way back in the 1970s.
Wow.
And considering, our coastline and it's obviously frequented by sharks all the time, but a lot of the shark breeds over in this side of the ditch are not as dangerous as the great white. But this pack of great whites, I don't know, do you call them a school of great whites, or, well, let's call them a group of great whites, I'm not too sure.
No, I think it's a school, but...
It is a school. They've been sighted in the last week going up and down the west coast beaches here, just west of Auckland. The beaches being Karikari Beach, Piha Beach and Bethel's Beach and Muriwai. Muriwai is where this attack occurred yesterday afternoon. So those beaches have been closed actually for 2 days until authorities can ascertain whether or not there remains an imminent risk from these sharks.
I don't know about well, here in Australia normally they're not in packs or in schools. Normally when we have great white attacks it's a single shark.
What they found there, the eyewitnesses to it, they saw one big shark. He was apparently around about 12 feet long, 12 to 14 is what the police are saying long, and very broad as a great white is. That was the initial attack happened there, and then another one came in and joined in. At first, people were saying that there were around 4, but police seem to have said that it appears 2 working there. Yeah.
Well, it's quite easy with the fins. I mean, you've got one at the the halfway mark and one at the back. So quite often it can look like there's 2 sharks instead of 1.
Well, there you go. Yeah. With the helicopter above, they kept sight of where the sharks were, and the police went out with the life-saving guys, and apparently one of the police took a shot at the shark, put 12 shots into the shark, and it took off. There's a little bit of criticism around that too, and I noted in the beginning of what you said there, it's their environment. So there's a little bit of a debate as to whether or not the police should have done that.
So when you say 12 shots, we're talking what, from a pistol or?
No, from a rifle.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So there's a little bit, I guess the natural response from those involved was to try and secure the beach to get it safe. And meanwhile, like I was saying at the beginning, the authorities have closed those West Coast beaches to all swimmers or all surfers until such time as they can ascertain what the status is relating to the sharks. So it's an interesting one. Usually, New Zealand doesn't have. This is very unusual. Like I was saying, 1970 was the last time there was a fatal attack. We do get from time to time shark attacks, but certainly not like this. The victim himself, his body is with the family now, and obviously the West Coast community out there in Muriwai is grieving. He was well known and well established in the community there and well regarded. So there's a lot of emphasis in the New Zealand news on this, and also the safety precautions of being aware when you're in the water.
Yeah, look, I can't think of anything more terrifying than a couple of sharks, particularly.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah, apparently Adam Strange put his hand up in the water and alerted the people on the shore. And immediately after that, he was attacked. So there was terrifying for all concerned. There was a group of tourists, young tourists that were out there surfing as well, and they heard cries from the shore and quickly got out of the water. And they were giving their eyewitness account to what had happened. So that was a big one. The other issue is a little bit of politics, Sean, and that's the New Zealand government. The Nationals are in power here and have been since 2008, and since the general election in 2011, when they won again, they campaigned on this principle of generating some money for the New Zealand economy by selling off the some New Zealand assets, particularly the energy companies. Mm-hmm. And it's been held up in the New Zealand courts for quite some time, mainly over grievance issues from Maori groups here in New Zealand that are saying that if they went out into the private sector, if they were sold off to the private sector, then it would make it much more difficult for them to get redress or recourse through the courts on issues of past alleged impropriety by the Crown in different areas and or compensation for the use of natural resource that they customarily have ownership of. So that was the basis of the claims. Now, it went right through to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled yesterday afternoon that the case would be dropped. So that gives a green light to the New Zealand government to sell off these assets, and it is certainly planning on doing so. And what it's expected to do is Mighty River Power, which is one of the biggest here in New Zealand in power generation, that it will be positioned to be sold. Half of it, what they're looking at is selling 49% of these companies, and it will go and be positioned on Monday for sale, and Kiwis can expect to supposedly invest in these companies by the end of next week. Now, the government has been delayed, as I mentioned here, and that's had an effect on whether or not it could meet its own economic agenda, its capital account agenda, etc., etc. And it's put a lot of pressure on the government with respect to what it was going to do if the Supreme Court ruled against us. Against it, I should say. Now, the Prime Minister said in quotes yesterday after the announcement came that he had the green light to sell, and he said, we didn't have a plan B in terms of funding our capital budget, but we want to use the money we're going to get out of these companies to buy other assets without putting debt on the balance sheet. So what he's talking about, who knows? What everybody knows is that the government needs the money to actually put into its own accounts so that it's got money to function. It decided not to pursue other ways of kind of drip feeding returns from these assets, which are generally putting returns back into the government over a period of time. Got to say, Sean, that one of the companies, since they announced it was going to float, Solid Energy, which is in the business of digging coal out and selling it, is virtually on the verge of receivership. It's almost broke. So the government's in a position now where it's a desperate seller. It needs the money, and you know what it's like when you get a desperate seller. They're trying to sell a car. They don't get the money that they expect.
It just sounds horrendous all round. And we've sold off all our energy concerns, and now people are struggling to even meet their energy bills because these are private entities and they are there to make their shareholders happy.
Yeah, it's a different kettle of fish, and these companies, like the ones in South Australia and the broader Australian continent, where a lot of them, these state companies were built on our fathers and mothers and grandfathers and grandmothers kind of sweat and equity in their taxpayer money. And then you've got a government now coming in and it's saying, oh, no, we can get between $5 and $7 billion for these if we sell, these assets. And what they're talking about is Mighty River Power, Genesis Energy, Meridian Energy, stakes in Air New Zealand, and possibly Solid Energy, although the latter, like I mentioned, is virtually zero. The opposition to this is huge. It's not just tagged to the opposition parties, but there's a referendum where close to 350,000 Kiwis have signed this referendum to try and block it. But even if that referendum goes to Parliament, there's a certain number that needs, and it looks like it's met it or pretty close to it. It's non-binding on the government, so the government can still say in the country's interest and in the government's best interest that it can sell. So it's very controversial, although the government itself, it says, well, the National said we campaigned in 2011. We were voted back in by way of the general election and the popular vote, and so therefore the people must have wanted it. But it's a controversial one. It's just banking on the fact that it's still sitting up reasonably high in the polls, although slowly dipping down over trends.
I don't know which one's more terrifying. Which story, the shark story or the power story, to be honest?
Yeah, well, one's a natural thing, the other one's created, I suppose, isn't it? So, yeah.
So, and I have to go, but thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, as it always is when we talk.
Okay, it's good to see you and hear. Well, good to hear from you again.
Hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Okay, mate. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Of course, that's Selwyn Manning all the way over there in New Zealand. Jeepers, you don't want to sell your power. There's plenty of Australians here can tell you all about that one. And a pack of sharks. That just makes me feel very unwell. Anyway, coming up, the wonderful, the amazing Anne Stone on her Newsy Throne.
The all-new Mitsubishi Mirage has arrived at Agast.